Oh, hey, welcome to Learn from the Worst. My first video. I am Nick. And today I want to kind of come out of the gate with a fun one. Just kind of something that I put together just because I've seen a lot of tutorials for textures, and this is kind of a lesser known method that I like to use. It's cool. So let me show you. So we got this, I'm going to call it a space ball. I don't know what to call it. It's just this abstract little object, and you can see we got some nice little gritty textures on the side of it. And it's kind of nice. Looks good. It's got some nice little, everybody knows the texturizer texture when you go up to effect and, you go down to, you go to pixelate. But I'm going to show you this method. It's really cool. It's easy. It's scalable. And you have a lot of control over it. So what we're going to do, first thing we're going to do, obviously, is start a new document. So Command N. New document. I have 2000 by 2000 pixels. Do whatever you want. But that's what I'm rolling with today. We're going to hit OK. And I am going to, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a background layer. So we're just going to grab our rectangle tool, or hit M. M as in M&Ms. On your keyboard, and we're going to click and drag, and we're going to go with a dark color. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the stroke. And nobody likes uninvited strokes. And then we're going to go with a darker, I like to go with like a space gray. So right here I use you can go to your swatches or your color picker over here, but I like to go with kind of these default Adobe color themes. They usually have some decent color groups together, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I go with these. I'm gonna make it a little darker. You can do whatever you want. So this color here, you can take these values down for the RGB values. It's 43, 51, 68. And then I'm just going to go over to my swatches. I'm going to hit the plus at the bottom. Say add new swatch. Just click OK. And then what I like to do, just so I have it on the ready, when I start putting colors together, I start working with colors. Start a new layer and just call it color palette. Call it whatever you want. I'm calling it color palette so I know what it is. And then off of our artboard, we're going to start. We're just going to start putting our colors together, just so they're accessible. We don't always have to go back to swatches. So, just a little tip. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock my background layer. We're going to call it background. Background, I'm going to lock it just so it doesn't bother me later. We're going to come back up. Actually, let's go back to the original document and just kind of break it down a little bit. So this is something I encourage every designer to do when you're working on something. If you're inspired by something and you're trying to either recreate it or just build a new skill for yourself, just kind of take a look at what your inspiration is and just kind of try to break it down into chunks or into easily digestible pieces, which I have to do because my brain is tiny. So right here it's clear we have this big pink ball circle in the background. It's kind of the base for the whole thing. So yeah, so just kind of start putting things together like back to front. Just work back to front. That's keeping in mind, your layers are gonna build up. So we're gonna go back to front here. So we have the big pink circle in the back. that has a nice little, this snowy little texture on it on the side. And you can see it's sort of fading. There's a gradation from the texture to the pink over here. And then in front of that, we have this green sort of blob in there. And then over the green, we have the purple and the blue. And in between those, so in between the purple and the green, we have this little gradation shadow. And then between the purple and the blue, we also have the same gradation shadow over here. We have this little light shine over here. I don't know the technical term for it, but it's like a shimmer, if you will, pretty little shimmer. And then we got this force field kind of thing. We got this is something I built, by the way. So, and I'm still confused as to what I'm calling things. Yeah, we're gonna call this a little force field. So let's start with the pink circle. That's probably furthest in the back. We're gonna tackle that first. So, what I like to, so if you want to just totally match the dimensions here, you can grab your ellipse tool over here and just kind of snap to the top and then snap to the bottom, intersect. So that is a height of 967.21 pixels. Let's just do 968. 968 by 968. Drawing stuff. So we're going to come over here. We're going to grab our ellipse tool. Actually, we're going to make a new layer first. We're going to call it pink circle. And it's going to be the base. Try to keep your layers organized and named in a way that you know what it is, or in a way that makes sense to you. I usually call things like this the base, just so I know it's the base. And that's all good. So we'll just name it pink circle base, and then we're going to come grab our ellipse tool, double click, and we're going to make this 968 by 968 pixels. Click OK, and there's our circle. So let's grab this pink. It's pretty close. I'll tell you what the value is in a second if you want to completely match what I'm doing. The hex value, actually we're going to give you RGB values. So the RGB value is 242, 148, 148. And then again, we're going to come over here to our color palette, just so we don't forget. And we're going to duplicate this square. So click on this square and hit Alt Shift and then drag. It's going to duplicate it and center it. And then we're going to use our eyedropper tool. We're just going to hit I, or you can go over here in your tools with the eyedropper tool. So hit I. Boom. We got our pink and our palette. And just for fun, we're going to add it to our swatches by clicking the plus sign in your swatches. Click OK. All right, so we got our circle base. We're going to use our align tool up here, our line icons, to horizontally and vertically align it on our artboard. And then we're going to go back and take a look. Okay, now we have the pink. We got the pink circle. Now we got to get this this texture. This is where the fun comes in. This is the whole point of this tutorial. We're going to create this texture, this sort of gradiated texture. Gradiated? It's kind of a word, huh? So we're going to lock our color palette for now. Keep your background locked. Come over here to your layers, and you're going to want to expand the pink circle layer. Okay, now this shows everything that's on this layer, all the different vectors on this layer. Right now we only have this circle. So, quick way to select it, you can just select the circle itself, or a little tip, if you click out these little squares, well, not this one because it's locked. So if we click just to the right of this little circle, this square, this little colored square will pop up, and that's the color of the your guide, or your, yeah, I guess your guides for that layer, and it'll select whatever is on that layer. So I'm going to come over back to the pink circle layer. I'm going to click this, and it's going to select whatever is on that layer. Now if I just, yeah, so we're going to do that. We're going to relock our background. Now we're going to take our circle, and we're going to hit Command C, and then Command F. And that's going to duplicate it, paste it right on top. So you see, now we have 2 ellipses. And then we're going to hit Command F again. Or you could hit Command C and Command F again, but it's still on our clipboard, so we're just going to hit Command F. That's going to add a 3rd ellipse. Now, what we want to do here is we want to take this middle ellipse, select it. See, this is why it's kind of nice to have this expanded, because if I wanted to select that middle ellipse, I'd have to move this one and then select that. But for right here, you just click it in the middle. I know the middle one is selected. Boom. And we're going to go to, I have it already open, but I'm going to close it just because I'm going to show you how to get there. So this is the lesser known texture technique that I like to use. And it's a lot of fun. So we're going to go the bottom left of your swatch palette. Make sure you have your swatch palette open, by the way. You can go up to Window. If you don't have it open, you can go up to Window and come down and make sure your swatches palette, or your swatches window is selected. And then we're going to come in the bottom left-hand corner here, your swatch libraries menu. We're going to click that. Then we're going to dig a little deeper, like a dog. Dig down to patterns, basic graphics, and then you have these 3 choices. Basic, dots, lines, or textures. We're going to use textures today. Look at that. You got this little basic graphic textures. There's not a ton of them in here, but there's enough to get us busy today. So let's go back over here to our layers, and we're just going to hide the top ellipse because it's hiding the middle one. So click that little eyeball. By the way, the eyeball, I don't know if you know this, it hides and shows a layer. It's pretty straightforward. Eyeball, you can see, not see. So we're going to hide the top one. We still have our middle one selected. Now for this tutorial, you can play with whatever texture you want. Let me just make sure. Yeah. So we got this one here. Let's zoom in a little bit just to see. It's like little plus signs. Got this little bird feet one. It's kind of cool. It's kind of 90s Trapper Keeper style. But for this one, I'm gonna shut up and we're just gonna use Gravel Beach. So it's over here, depending on where you're. Just mouse over them, just roll over them, and it'll show the name of it in case your little swatches aren't stacked the way mine are. So we're gonna find Gravel Beach. So just mouse over until you find this. We're gonna click that. Now you notice by default, all these graphic textures are black. And if you go back to the original Spaceballs, Rick Moranis. He just got sucker punched. If you go back over here, you're going to notice the texture is white. You can keep it black if you like the black. We're going to, for the purposes of this, I want to show you how to recolor these textures because it's not intuitive, it's not obvious. So we have our middle ellipse selected. We gave it this basic graphic texture. Now we want to make this great basic graphic texture white. And as you can see, our fill color for this is the texture. So we can't refill the fill because the fill is the texture. So with it selected, you're going to want to go up to this right next to our line icons and the artboard icon. There's going to be this little black and white color wheel looking thing. And it's called the Recolor Artwork. option. So you're going to click on that, and it's going to bring up the this little widget here for recoloring the artwork. Now it's going to show you the current colors that's being displayed for this artwork, and by default, I believe this is just a dash right here. So you want to click that dash and make sure it's an arrow pointing to the new color that we're going to give it. And then we're going to double click the new, and it's going to bring up our color picker, and we're just going to drag up to white, or everybody knows the hex value of white is F. I believe it's 6 Fs. Click OK. Boom! Look at that. It's white. It's white. How cool is that? Now we're going to get even cooler with this. I'm going to show you another option here. This is what I mean when I say you have a lot of control over this versus just going to the effects and the textures up there. So we're going to right click on the same ellipse that's filled with this texture. Now I like the size of this texture, so I'm probably going to keep it here, but I just want to show you how we're going to scale the texture to make it bigger or smaller without scaling our object. So we're going to right click and then go down to transform, and then you're going to go to scale. And you're going to click on scale. Now, by default, I think depending on your document or whatever your last maybe whatever it is up in your Illustrator preferences. But by default, mine always goes to transform objects, which we don't want to do. We want to transform the pattern inside. And that's just going to transform the scale of the pattern inside. Now, what do I mean by that? Go up here to scale. You see it's 100%. So this is the default 100% Sandy Beach, or whatever it's called. I forgot what it's called already. This is 100% of this particular texture. So if you go to 200, hit tab. If you ever want to preview, make sure your preview is ticked. If you ever want to preview something without committing to that value and then having to go back in later on, just hit tab. And that's 200%. So you see just the texture got bigger and not the object that the texture is applied to. So just for fun, we'll go to 500 and we'll see. It's getting huge, way too big. 200 wasn't terrible, but because I'm OCD, I'm going to go to 150. 150 looks good. It's good. We like it. And then we're going to click OK. Now, if you're not happy with it, just right click, go back to transform, scale. Oh, it's going to apply. When you do that, by the way, when you go back in, it's going to reapply the last scale that you just applied. So it's going to increase it by another 50%. So let's just go, we're going to hit cancel. But so if you thought it was too big, just start going lower. So we'll throw in 100% here. Or we'll just hit cancel. You see how I went to 100% and it stayed at my 150? That's because when we went back in to scale it, it reapplied the last scale. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. But yeah, it's really easy to control this texture, and it's done all with math, and there's no you're not using like a vector texture and masking it and all that stuff. So this is a really cool way. It's how I like to apply textures. It's clean. It's got a good look to it. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to kind of play with it a little bit. I don't like it super 100% white, so I'm going to kind of tone it down a little bit. The opacity, make it like 60% opacity. And boom, we'll leave it like that. We like that. We're happy. Then we're going to come back over here. So remember, back on our Spaceballs, we had this. It's a gradient from the texture to the pink. So here's the other fun part. We're going to teach you how to make a mask for your texture. So, remember how we made a third ellipse? Let's go ahead and make that visible and click on it. Okay. Now, the way the mask works, I don't want to get into the super granular details of a mask, but essentially, when you apply a mask, it will make visible whatever's white. Whatever is underneath the white value will be visible, and whatever is underneath the black value will be not visible. So, with that in mind, let's take this ellipse and we're going to add a gradient to it. So over here on our fill, we're going to come down between the fill color, gradient, and none, and we're going to click on the gradient. Now, because this is an ellipse, we're going to be good designers, and we're going to come over to our gradient palette, which will pop up once you add the gradient. The type of gradient we're going to add is going to be radial. So we're going to click that middle radial button, and we're going to give it a radial gradient. Now, you see how it's uniform from the middle? We don't want that. So we're going to adjust our gradient. You can either hit Edit Gradient or just hit G on your keyboard, G for gradient, and that'll bring up your little controls here for your gradient. So we want to take this white and we want to put the white, because remember the texture was towards the right of the sphere, of the space ball. So we're going to take this and we're going to make the white, I believe it goes white to black. Yeah, okay. So we're going to click and drag from the bottom right hand corner to up here, and that's looking a little, actually that is looking linear. So we don't want that. We don't want that. Let's go something like this. Let's just move it kind of over here. All right, something like that, but we want to soften this up. So let's go like here. Man, I am not, gradients are not agreeing with me today. It's been a little while. Okay, let's just leave this for now. We'll see how this goes. Now, in order to apply this mask, we're going to apply a gradient to this texture. We're going to come back over here to our layers. We're going to select the ellipse that we just made, the gradient ellipse that we just made, and the texture ellipse. We're going to shift, hold down shift, and click this. So now we have both. We have the gradient and the texture underneath. And we're going to come over here to transparency, and we're going to click make mask. Now you see, if we zoom in, you see how it's revealing underneath what the white value is above it. So remember our mask, let's see, if we release it, you see all this, the white value is where you're going to see the texture. So this is pretty good, but I think we want to view a little bit more of the texture here. So we'll do something like this. The other thing you can do also, keeping in mind the rules I just told you of the gradient and how the mask works, if you don't want it to be so abrupt, if you don't want the transparency to be so visible, not visible, like if you want it to be, visible, slightly visible, like not so you're not seeing none of it over here, if that makes sense. There's a lot of double negatives in there. We can go back to our gradient, our black and white. We're going to release the mask. We're going to go back to our gradient. And it would just be easier if I showed you instead of fumbling over my words like an idiot. We're We're going to hit G to get back into our gradient. Oh, hold on. That's because we have both things selected. Make sure you're just selected on this ellipse or else you won't get your gradient options up here. We're going to double click this. It's black. It's 100% black. You see that? If you slide the color slider over towards white and make it a little more gray, and watch what this does. Now, keeping in mind the rule is white is visible, black is not visible. What's gray going to be? Slightly visible, like 50%, I think. So go back to transparency, make sure these are both selected, remake your mask, and boom. You see now? See how they're slightly visible over here? They're a little more opaque than we had before. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's sort of that's the texture. This is the texture. I'm actually gonna turn this up to like 75 because you're kind of losing the. So this is a texture technique that I use. It's like I said, it's sort of lesser known. I know there's a ton of tutorials out there showing, going up to effect and selecting, selecting the grain texture and stipple and all that stuff. It's just different. It's a matter of preference. I like this one just because you have a little more control over it as far as changing the color and you can still also, here's another thing too, you can still we can go back in here and change the color again to say we want like a darker pink. Just something darker, not quite black, but something like a little darker than the pink that we have up there. I should have had the. Let's actually grab the hex value of this pink here. We're gonna go back to our palette. We're gonna unlock our color palette. Click over here. Double click to fill. Here's our hex value. We're going to copy that, Command C. We're going to go in here. We're going to re-click our textured ellipse. Click the recolor tool, recolor artwork tool. Double click in here. We're going to apply Command V. We're going to put in the, now there's the pink value. So now say we want something a little darker. You can go black and then adjust the transparency, but say we just want a color value that's a little bit darker than that. Come down here, click OK, click OK. That did not recolor it. We may need to, so let's hide this. Let's go back up to recolor artwork. It's white. Maybe I didn't apply it. Command V. That's the pink. Slightly darker. Click OK. All right. Oh, you know what? That's why we have to click this minus sign to make it an arrow. Don't forget that. Like I just did. Like a dummy. All right, now we have our darker pink value here. Click OK. We're going to reapply our mask. I'm sorry, people. I just don't have it together today. Transparency, make mask. So now we have like a darker. So you can do whatever you want. You can play with the color values, the scale. And yeah, that's kind of how this texture technique works. I'm going to include the Spaceballs or the Spaceball artwork that I made. It's going to be a free download in the description, so you can kind of break it apart and do whatever you want with it. Maybe I'll just do a follow-up video where I do. You know what? That's what I'll do. I'll make it a two-parter. So I'm going to teach you the technique here, the texture technique, and then I'm going to I'm going to take it a step further in the next episode. So yeah, this is the lesser known texture technique that I like to use in Illustrator. You might like to use it too. That's it. So thank you for watching my first video and bearing with me. And if you like this stuff, if it's helpful, if you like my stumbling, bumbling way of teaching, feel free to subscribe, because I got a ton of stuff lined up for you guys. Like, so much stuff. There's so much stuff in here I got to get in there, in your brain. So, yeah. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode. Maybe. All right. Toodles.